Today on Toy Habits, we are taking an in-depth look at the G.I. Joe Classified Series Firefly figure, and we also have a comparison to the vintage Firefly from 1984 that you will not want to miss, so stay tuned. All right, let's first take a look at the box, and Firefly comes in the traditional classified series window display where you can see all of the goodies that he comes with. And typically I am very impressed with the box art that comes with these figures, but for some reason the Firefly art is just not doing it for me. I think the way that his suit was drawn and colored, I think is just too dark, and it just doesn't give a lot of contrast to the figure, because the figure you can see a lot of definition in the armor and the varying colors, even though they're a mix of grays and blacks. But turning it around on the side, it's very similar reaction to the front of the box that I have here. You can't really see a lot of his mask. It could be a dark scene, but I do like the expression on his face. It looks like he has a sinister look on his face, like he just came from blowing something up, which is probably true because looks like there's fire and smoke behind him. So looks like he's pretty happy with the result of his handiwork. Taking a look at the side of the box, you can see that he's a level 4 at covert ops and at classified information and at sabotage, but really only a level 2 at explosives, which is surprising because you'd expect a saboteur to have an amazing explosives game, but I guess everyone has growth opportunities, including Firefly. Taking a look at the back of the box, and Firefly comes with the standard Cobra Island map that comes with all of the Cobra Island special mission figures, and I really love looking at this map because there is so much to this map. You can stare at this for days and really not see everything that there is to see. For example, I'm just noticing that there are two really huge Cobra statues that are looking at each other, but I'm really not sure what they're framing or what they're doing. Maybe that's an entrance to an underground base. Who knows? But it's fun to speculate. So like every other G.I. Joe classified figure that I've reviewed before, I'm going to take a look at each body part up close and personal. So let's take a look at the head sculpt, and it's really stunning the way that they've captured his facial expression underneath a mask, with the way that his eyes are drawn and rendered and sculpted, as well as the burnt, singed eyebrows that he appears to have on his face. And if you really take a closer look at this, the eyes are the window to the soul, and the way that these eyes are sculpted and painted really, really brings the figure to life here. It really looks like Firefly has been a victim of his own mayhem at some point, where a flash bomb might have gone off in his face, or he just got too close to some fire and just burnt his face. And what I really, really love about this mouth sculpt is that you can kind of see through his mask, like he is making a grimacing face where his mask is contorted and the fabric is conforming to his face. I also love that they gave him ear guards to protect him, and I also love that there's some definition to his mask, and I love that there's a couple tones going on. So we have the gray camo, and it looks more like a leathery type of material running over his ears and also down the back, down the back of his head over here. So yeah, I think they did a great job with his head sculpt and just conveying a lot of emotion of Firefly through just his eyes and the way he looks. All right, let's now take a look at his chest armor, and you can see that he is packing 3 grenades on his left shoulder, which are very, very detailed for how tiny they are. They have little straps running up and down them to hold the grenades in place, and he's also got shoulder armor that is of a kind of a flexible material here that you can bend up and down, so when you move his shoulder, the articulation won't get stopped by his armor there. And I love that they have a Cobra symbol on the side of his arm. And turning the figure around to the back, you can really see all of the detail that they have in his back armor, because when you're running away from something you're blowing up, you really need that extra protection. So they've really captured that here. And really the only thing that I do not like about the chest armor is just the way that his neck is just covered by this really chunky piece of armor, which kind of hides his head, which if you look at it closely, it's not really a good look for Firefly. And speaking of extra armor, he does have crotch armor, which is very important because you have to protect the family jewels. And I love the way that the silver belt buckle was designed here. It just really pops on this gray figure. And if you turn him around to the back, yes, he also has butt armor as well, because you have to protect your cheeks when you're a saboteur. And the last thing that we'll look at with his armor are the explosive packs that he has on the front of his chest and his stomach. And they are very highly detailed for what they are. And I love the little stitching that they have. It looks like he can just open a pouch down here and access the bombs, that he can grab with his hand and then just chuck a bomb and quickly get out of the way. The next thing we'll take a look at is the arms, and there's really not too much going on with the arms, although there is a little pouch that's sculpted into his shoulder, and he does have one on this side. If you pull up the armor here, you can also see it there. And I really love the way that they've designed the clothing here, and it just looks like these figures are wearing the clothing, the way they're sculpted, the way there's wrinkles in places like his cuff, where, if you moved your wrist in normal clothing, you would have wrinkles in your forearm and other places as well. And really the same goes for the pant detail here, because there's a lot of wrinkles in the clothing, and it just really looks like this is a well-worn suit that he's in. And I really love the knee pads, and I love the little extra detailing that they put down here. It just adds a little punch to what could be some boring knee pads. I think one of the favorite things that I love to look at now are the boots on these figures, because they are really well done. I mean, they look like real shoes. There's tread on the bottom of his feet, as well as the strap detail is pretty amazing the way it wraps around the boot. And the front of the boot is actually pretty interesting. It kind of looks like a Cobra symbol. Maybe he's going to shop at the Cobra Emporium. Maybe that's where he gets his boots. But if you bring the boots around to the side, you can kind of see the strap detail coming around the back. And it looks like there could be a logo of the shoemaker here. I can't really make it out. Maybe that's just plastic molding. Who knows? But I really dig the boots. All right, let's take a look at his accessories, and I really love that they just packed a gaggle of accessories here. And let's take a first look at the gun. And the guns on these figures, just in general, are really well done. There is a lot of detail on the handle as well as the barrel, and there's just looks like a lot of mechanisms, and it looks like there is also a port that he can use to plug into his backpack, which we will take a look at later. Let's pick up his sticks of dynamite, and these are really neat. The red dynamite, it looks like there's a timing mechanism as well as a fuse that's molded into this, and this was just really well done. And it even just looks like from the bottom that they have a bunch of sticks of dynamite in there, where they could have just had a solid piece of plastic. And if you notice, there is also a space probably to plug it into his backpack. He also comes with a detonating iPad or some sort of communication device where he can remotely detonate the fury that he unleashes on the Joe army. And he also comes with eyes in the sky in the form of drone, which I think is really cool. The fan detail is amazing, as well as the eye. It kind of looks like something out of RoboCop, and kind of looks like Ed 209 with Mickey Mouse ears. And lastly, we have his backpack. And the backpack is, again, really detailed, and I love the way that they use silver for the touches of accents here with the knives and the belt buckle just to differentiate the various parts and pieces on the backpack. So let's take a look at how you can kind of plug his gun in on the side port here so he can store his gun like so. And I'm guessing that you put his dynamite on here. So again, this actually makes it look like a much cooler backpack, and he looks like you would not want to cross him on the street. I'd probably want to turn the other way if I saw somebody walking with a backpack like that. And last thing that I'm going to look at here are the goggles, and I'm not a big fan of these goggles. I actually to like to place these goggles up on his forehead versus just putting him down over his eyes, because I really love the way his eyes look. And if you put the goggles on his eyes, it really looks like he is from either a video game or another planet. He just does not look human. I think they made the goggles look a little too bug-eyed, so I think I'm just going to keep these on top of his head like so, and he can go on his merry way destroying whatever he wants to destroy. All right, let's take a look at Firefly all geared up, and he actually looks really cool with all of his gear, him holding his gun, and if you turn him around, you can see the backpack with the explosives on the bottom, and now I get why he has some blast armor on his butt in case his bombs go off. Now that is a brilliant addition and choice for this armor. I love that he can hold his little iPad or electronic device where he can remotely detonate the things that he is exploding. Yeah, the figure just looks really great all around. Something else that I really love to do if I have these figures on hand is compare the vintage figure with the updated figure. And it looks like what they've done here is they've retained the grenades that are on Firefly's strap in the vintage line, and they just put them up here, which is a great nod to the vintage figure. Also, he has pouches on his chest, which they've moved to the side of his arms. Another nod to the vintage figure is the way that they did the Cobra logo on the classified Firefly, still keeping it on his right shoulder, where the vintage figure has his Cobra logo as well. Now that I'm looking at these figures a little bit closer, if you look at Firefly's backpack on the vintage figure, it does come off, and I think this is what I think they were trying to do. I think that they were trying to give a nod to Firefly's backpack by having him hold a piece of equipment that kind of looks similar to the piece that comes off of Firefly's backpack. I don't know if this was something that was intended, but it looks like a nod to me. And some of the differences that you can see in the backpacks, the vintage figures backpack does have a lot of gear. It looks like there is also dynamite on there now that I look closer. So there is also dynamite on the classified figure. And you can also see just a bunch of tools in the toolbox here on his backpack. And I think this actually might be a wrench sticking up. So that could be a nod to some of the tools that Firefly used to carry around in the vintage line. Some of the differences that you'll see are Firefly came with a walkie-talkie when he was packaged in the vintage line, and I don't think kids know what walkie-talkies are these days, and so the iPad is also the equivalent to the walkie-talkie that Firefly can use to remotely detonate things. But one aspect that I really wish they would have retained is just the overall look of Firefly's gun in the classified line. They just look very different from each other, which is okay, but I would have loved if they looked a little bit similar rather than them looking very, very different like they do here. Well, I hope you enjoyed this review of the G.I. Joe Classified Series Firefly figure as much as I did, and let us know what you think of this figure in the comments below. Do you like it? Would you make any changes to the figure? And always, if you like what you see, give this video a thumbs up and let us know that you like the channel by subscribing and sharing with your friends, your family, your multiple Google accounts, whatever.